Ponytails. Read by Scribbler. The Visit by Norse Pony. The double doors slid open in front of Iron Will, and he entered the lobby. He nodded at the staff without breaking stride. They knew why he was here. Crossing the lobby, he smiled and waved at a few creatures who recognized him in spite of the heavy coat draping his frame and the sunglasses and fedora hiding his face. The elevator hissed smoothly upward, and the doors opened on the 3rd floor. He strode to room 316, knocked, and entered. Inside, he removed his hat and sunglasses and smiled at the shrunken figure on the hospital bed.
"Hello, Mama."
She smiled at him and held her arms out for a hug.
"William, it's good you can make it."
He rested his head on her shoulder and brought his hands around to touch her back gently, delicately.
"I wouldn't miss it, Mama. You know that."
She leaned back against the stacked pillows at the head of the bed.
"I know how busy you are all the time. I would understand if you couldn't be here."
He shook his head.
"I always take the day off today, Mama. This is more important."
He held a hand out to her to help her out of the bed. Iron Will pushed the wheelchair out into the brisk Trottingham autumn and off the curb to the waiting carriage. He bent and scooped his mother up in his arms and hid his shock at how light she had become. He placed her in the carriage, lifted the wheelchair in after her, and climbed in to sit next to her. He shut the carriage door and rapped twice on the roof. The carriage lurched into motion as the driver signalled the team. Iron Will pushed the wheelchair through the manicured grass, under the wrought iron arch, and toward a spreading oak tree on a slight rise. At the top of the rise, his mother turned to look up at him.
"William, stop here. I'll walk the rest of the way."
Worry flared in Iron Will's mind.
"Are you sure, Mama? It's only a little further. I can push you the rest of the way. I don't want you to get tired."
She shook her head firmly.
"I'll be walking. I'm not about to let him see me like this."
He nodded unhappily.
"I understand, Mama. Let me help you up."
Arm in arm, they crept toward the tree, Iron Will gazing down at his mother, taking short, mincing steps to match her pace. At last they reached the tree and could read the grave marker set into the clean green grass. "Yellow Belly, beloved husband and father," it read. Iron Will stared at the words, the old turmoil of emotions rising to fill him, as they did every year. Beloved father, it read. His lip curled. Beloved wasn't the word he would have chosen. Shameful, maybe. Embarrassment. Milquetoast. Coward. He jerked at the light touch on his arm and looked down to meet his mother's upturned gaze. He suddenly became aware that he was gritting his teeth and his chin was quivering. His mother squeezed his arm, a guppy comforting a shark.
"William, I know you have some feelings about your father, and that's all right, but you need to forgive him for your own sake. He did the best he could for us. He never did less than his best."
Iron Will looked at the low grey clouds so that he didn't have to look at his mother's wet cheeks. He spoke to the clouds, leashed anger in his voice.
His best wasn't enough, Mama. If he'd been stronger, if he'd been able to stand up for himself and take what he deserved, he would have been able to give you a better life.
He forced himself to look back down at her.
I can't forgive him for hurting you, Mama.
She blinked wrinkled eyelids, and tears ran smoothly down wrinkled cheeks. She smiled, a slight curve of the lips, and shook her head.
It wasn't your father who hurt me, or you.
Her smile grew.
Did I ever tell you he wanted to be a chef?
Iron Will frowned at her, his brows drawing together in confusion.
I didn't... Really? I thought he chose to be a mason.
She looked at the grave marker, and her smile became sad.
He hated every day of it for all those years.
She gripped his arm again.
He did it for us because it paid the bills. He gave up his dream to support us because you and I were in the hospital for a long time after you were born. He needed as much money as he could just to make ends meet.
Iron Will blinked, his jaw dangling in shock. He had never known any of this.
But...
She silenced him with a look.
Paying off that debt took decades. He did whatever the company wanted without protest because he was definitely afraid of losing his job and carrying us into poverty.
She patted his arm, feather light.
That's why he never stood up for himself, William. He decided he couldn't risk it. He wasn't weak. He was the strongest bull I've ever known.
Iron Will's knees felt weak, and absurdly, he considered sitting down in the wheelchair.
But why wait so long to tell me this?
His mother met his questioning gaze with clear, forceful eyes.
I hoped you'd grown strong enough to forgive on your own. But you've turned your strength outwards, not inwards like it should be. And I'm afraid there isn't much time left for me to wait any longer.
He rocked back under the sting of her words and turned away in reflexive shame. His eyes fell on the grave marker. Yellow Belly, beloved husband and father. He stood, transfixed for a dozen heartbeats, as the grey clouds scudded overhead. Finally, William bent his head.
I'm sorry, Papa.
That was The Visit. It was written by Norse Pony and read by Scribbler, with special guest voice actors Chance Taylor as the voice of Iron Will and Rarityfangirl31 VA as Iron Will's mother. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I am trying to be rather quiet at the moment because there were people sleeping in the house. I'm so tired myself that I'm actually on my way to bed right now, but thought I would record this and upload it. I've been in an interview with Ponyville FM tonight. It's their 4th anniversary and they're doing a 36-hour live stream and asked me to be interviewed, and I was like, yeah, if you just want me to blather randomly for an hour. And it turns out that I already knew the interviewer from way back in 2012. So wow, that was a proper blast from the past, that one. This particular fic is rather short, but I really, really like it. It's from 30 Minute Ponies, which unfortunately is a Tumblr that's not active anymore, and I really wish it was, because it was a wonderful concept, and I wish somebody would resurrect it. It sometimes brought about absolute dreck, but a lot of the time it brought about little one-shots like this, little gems that don't get that much attention because they're not always stored on fanfiction. Not always. Sometimes they are, but not always. And they're kind of lurking about on this Tumblr, undiscovered. I think more people should just go and poke about on 30 Minute Ponies and have a look into the archives and just enjoy what's there, because there's some really, really good stuff there. Right, oh gosh, yeah. it's been an interesting week this week. I went back to work on Monday from the Christmas holidays, and on Tuesday, on the way to work, I emergency braked for a cat on the way to work, and managed to give myself whiplash. So, I managed a day and a bit at work before I had to go home poorly, and wasn't in on Wednesday, so it's been an odd week, with a very sore neck. I spent quite a lot of the week with a hot water bottle literally strapped to my neck with my scarf, trying to take some of the pain away. So, not as productive a week as I would have liked, hence this reading is a bit shorter than the one I'd actually intended to put out this week. I mean, I could really like this fiction anyway, but it wasn't the one I'd intended to do. But I couldn't sit at my laptop for any longer than it took to do this one, because the pain was just too bad. So, yeah. I was actually in another fanfic reading this week, with someone whom I collaborated on once before. His name's Wooten, A-I-E, I think? Yeah, Wooten. I just know him as Wooten. And, he put together a fic called Bravest Face, and it's a fic about Octavia dealing with schizophrenia, and it's a really quite sweet fiction, and Wooten's channel doesn't have that many subscribers, so I think it's time to change that, because if you go and listen to the reading, my part aside, it's really, really well done, so I'll put a link in the notes below, but go and listen to that one, because it's pretty powerful stuff. In other news, I have a bit of a cold that's developing into a cough, and sadly, I think into something of a chest infection, so I may have to love you and leave you now. I will just say, please go and check out all the other fanfic readers that are out there that... I say this a lot. You can notice now I'm talking really quietly again. One, because if I talk quietly, it means it doesn't tickle my throat as much, so I'm probably not going to cough as much. And two, because of aforementioned sleeping people. But I mention this a lot, of going and listening to other fanfic readers. There is actually a list on my channel called Other Fanfic Readers, Norse People, I think that's the name of it, but it's words to that effect. It's on the right-hand side of my channel, and it's a load of people whom I really admire or have collaborated with before, whom did the readings that got me into fandom. There are a couple of notable people who are not there, and that's simply because YouTube is a bit stupid and won't let me put them on there. I think they're people like Thornquill Audiofix. He's not on there, even though he should be. I want him to be on there, and I can't make YouTube cooperate. So anyway, go listen to them, and enjoy it. And I will go and enjoy the last parts of my painkiller medication now. No, that sounds really bad. No, I'm going to go to bed, is what I mean. Because the painkiller medication makes me sleepy. So, be lovely to each other, and good night, everybody. I'm gonna go to bed now.